Imagine a world where mammals weren't the dominant force they are today. A world where our ancestors were nothing more than tiny, furry creatures scurrying through the shadows, desperately trying to avoid becoming someone else's dinner. This isn't some alternate reality or science fiction fantasy. This was Earth 200 million years ago, during the age when dinosaurs ruled supreme and early mammals lived in constant terror. But here's what most people don't realize about this prehistoric nightmare. The relationship between dinosaurs and early mammals wasn't just predator versus prey. It was an intricate dance of survival, adaptation, and evolutionary warfare that would ultimately determine which lineages would thrive and which would vanish forever. Today, we're going to dive deep into this brutal chapter of natural history and uncover the shocking truth about when dinosaurs hunted early mammals. Now, before we go any further, let me tell you why this story matters so much. Everything I'm about to reveal comes from decades of fossil evidence, cutting-edge research, and scientific discoveries that have completely revolutionized our understanding of prehistoric life. We're talking about a 150 million year arms race that shaped the very DNA of every mammal alive today, including us. By the end of this video, you'll understand how our tiny ancestors survived against impossible odds and why their survival strategies still influence animal behavior in the modern world. But first, we need to set the stage. Picture this. It's the late Triassic period, around 220 million years ago. The supercontinent Pangaea dominates the landscape, creating vast deserts in the interior and lush, humid forests along the coasts. The climate is hot and dry, with no polar ice caps and sea levels much higher than today. In this alien world, the first true mammals are just beginning to emerge from their synapsid ancestors. These early mammals were nothing like the diverse creatures we see today. Most were tiny, no bigger than a modern mouse or shrew. They had simple, pointed teeth designed for catching insects and small invertebrates. Their bodies were covered in primitive fur, and they possessed the basic mammalian traits we recognize today: warm-blooded metabolism, milk production for their young, and enhanced sensory capabilities. But in a world dominated by massive reptiles, these advantages seemed almost insignificant. The dinosaurs of this era were already establishing their dominance across terrestrial ecosystems. Coelophysis, a slender theropod predator, stalked through the forests on powerful hind legs, its keen eyesight scanning for any movement among the undergrowth. These early dinosaurs had evolved superior locomotion, with upright limbs positioned directly beneath their bodies, giving them speed and agility that their competitors simply couldn't match. Here's where the story gets fascinating. The first interactions between dinosaurs and early mammals weren't random encounters. They were part of a complex ecosystem where every species was fighting for survival in an increasingly competitive world. The end Triassic extinction event had wiped out many of the large archosaurs and therapsids that previously dominated terrestrial environments, creating new opportunities for both dinosaurs and mammals to expand into vacant ecological niches. But dinosaurs had a massive head start. Their superior size, strength, and hunting capabilities made them the obvious winners in this evolutionary lottery. Meanwhile, early mammals were forced into the margins, adopting nocturnal lifestyles and hiding in burrows, rock crevices, and dense vegetation during the day. This wasn't cowardice. This was brilliant evolutionary strategy. Let me paint you a picture of what a typical day looked like for these early mammals. As the sun set over the Triassic landscape, tiny creatures like Morganucodon would emerge from their hiding places. These mouse-sized mammals possessed something that gave them a crucial advantage in the darkness: enhanced hearing and smell. While dinosaurs relied heavily on vision, early mammals had evolved sophisticated sensory systems that allowed them to navigate and hunt in complete darkness. Their large ears could detect the slightest sound of approaching predators, while their sensitive noses could identify food sources, potential mates, and dangerous threats from remarkable distances. These adaptations weren't just helpful, They were absolutely essential for survival in a world where stepping into the wrong place at the wrong time meant instant death. The hunting strategies employed by dinosaurs during this period were remarkably diverse. Small theropods like Compsognathus used their speed and agility to chase down prey in open areas, while larger predators relied on ambush tactics, waiting motionlessly among vegetation before launching devastating attacks. Some dinosaurs even developed pack hunting behaviors, coordinating their efforts to take down larger prey or systematically search areas for hidden mammals. What's truly remarkable is how early mammals responded to these threats. They didn't just hide and hope for the best. They evolved active countermeasures that would influence mammalian evolution for millions of years to come. Enhanced parental care became crucial, with mothers investing enormous energy in protecting and nurturing their young. Complex burrow systems provided safe havens where families could retreat during the most dangerous daylight hours. Social behaviors also began to emerge among early mammal communities. While they couldn't match the size and strength of their reptilian neighbors, they developed sophisticated communication systems using ultrasonic calls that were completely inaudible to most dinosaurs. These high-frequency vocalizations allowed them to coordinate group activities, warn of approaching dangers, and maintain social bonds without alerting predators to their presence. The fossil record from this period tells an incredible story of adaptation and survival. We find mammal fossils with bite marks from dinosaur teeth, evidence of failed predation attempts where the mammal managed to escape. We also discover dinosaur coprolites containing mammalian remains, proving that these interactions were frequent and deadly. But perhaps most importantly, we see the gradual refinement of mammalian traits that would eventually give them the tools they needed to not just survive, but eventually thrive. One of the most significant developments was the evolution of more efficient metabolisms. Early mammals possessed endothermic physiology, meaning they could regulate their own body temperature internally. This gave them a massive advantage during cooler periods and allowed them to remain active when cold-blooded dinosaurs became sluggish. However, this metabolic efficiency came at a cost. They needed to consume far more food relative to their body size than their reptilian competitors. This created a fascinating evolutionary pressure. Mammals had to become incredibly efficient foragers, capable of finding and processing food sources that dinosaurs either couldn't access or weren't interested in. They specialized in eating insects, small invertebrates, seeds, and fruits. Some even developed the ability to process plant matter more efficiently than most reptiles, opening up entirely new dietary niches. The relationship between dinosaurs and early mammals during the Jurassic period became even more complex as both groups continued to diversify and adapt. Dinosaurs grew larger and more specialized, with massive sauropods dominating the landscape and fearsome predators like Allosaurus ruling the food chains. Meanwhile, mammals remained small but became increasingly sophisticated in their survival strategies. What happened next would determine the fate of both groups for the next 100 million years. The stage was set for one of the most remarkable survival stories in the history of life on Earth, where tiny mammals would face challenges that seemed absolutely impossible to overcome. Their success or failure would ultimately determine whether warm-blooded, fur-covered creatures would have any future at all in a world ruled by reptilian giants. The evolutionary arms race was just beginning, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. In our next segment, we'll explore how this deadly game of cat and mouse escalated throughout the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, leading to some of the most incredible adaptations and survival strategies ever documented in the fossil record. The Jurassic period brought with it a dramatic escalation in this prehistoric arms race. As dinosaurs continued their relentless march toward gigantism, early mammals found themselves facing predators that defied imagination. Picture this: Dilophosaurus, standing nearly 3 meters tall, stalking through dense cycad forests, with razor-sharp claws and bone-crushing jaws. For a mammal no bigger than a modern rat, encountering one of these apex predators was like stumbling into a living nightmare. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The fossil evidence from this period reveals something absolutely stunning about mammalian evolution. Rather than simply becoming better at hiding, early mammals began developing offensive capabilities that would shock even modern paleontologists. Repenomamus, discovered in China and dating to the early Cretaceous, stretched over a meter long and possessed powerful jaws filled with sharp teeth. Inside the stomach cavity of one fossil specimen, researchers found the remains of a juvenile Psittacosaurus, a small dinosaur. Let that sink in for a moment. A mammal was eating dinosaurs. This discovery completely shattered our understanding of Mesozoic ecosystems. For decades, scientists assumed that mammals were perpetual victims in a world dominated by reptilian giants. But the evidence suggests something far more complex and fascinating was happening. Some mammals weren't just surviving the age of dinosaurs. They were actively fighting back. The evolutionary pressures that drove this remarkable transformation were unlike anything we see in modern ecosystems. Imagine living in a world where every shadow could conceal a predator capable of swallowing you whole, where every rustle in the undergrowth might signal your final moments, where the difference between life and death came down to split-second decisions and lightning-fast reflexes. Early mammals responded to these impossible challenges by becoming evolutionary Swiss Army knives. They developed specialized teeth for different food sources, allowing them to exploit dietary niches that dinosaurs couldn't access. Some evolved powerful digging claws for excavating burrows and uncovering buried insects. Others developed enhanced climbing abilities, using their sharp claws and flexible spines to navigate the three-dimensional maze of Mesozoic forests. The most successful mammalian lineages during this period were those that embraced what we might call extreme specialization. Fruitifossor, a bizarre mammal from the late Jurassic, possessed enormously enlarged forelimbs and claws specifically adapted for tearing apart termite mounds and ant colonies. Its entire body plan was dedicated to accessing high-energy insect protein that was essentially invisible to most dinosaur predators. Meanwhile, other mammals were pushing the boundaries of size and behavior in completely different directions. Castorocauda, a semi-aquatic mammal from the Middle Jurassic, possessed a flattened tail, similar to modern beavers, and spent much of its time in rivers and lakes. By moving into aquatic environments, these mammals accessed food sources and safe havens that were largely off-limits to terrestrial dinosaur predators. The psychological warfare between these two groups reached extraordinary levels of sophistication. Dinosaurs evolved enhanced sensory capabilities specifically for detecting hidden mammals. Some developed improved night vision, allowing them to hunt more effectively during the twilight hours when mammals were most active. Others evolved more sensitive hearing, capable of detecting the ultrasonic communications that mammals use to coordinate their activities. But mammals weren't passive participants in this evolutionary chess match. They developed counter-adaptations that were equally impressive. Enhanced spatial memory allowed them to navigate complex burrow systems and remember the locations of multiple escape routes. Improved chemical communication enabled them to mark territories and warn others about dangerous areas without making sounds that predators could detect. The most remarkable aspect of this prehistoric conflict was how it accelerated the evolution of intelligence in both groups. Dinosaurs that could remember mammalian hiding spots and predict their behavior were more successful hunters. Mammals that could anticipate dinosaur hunting patterns and adapt their own behaviors accordingly were more likely to survive and reproduce. This cognitive arms race produced some of the most sophisticated behaviors documented in the Mesozoic fossil record. Trackways show evidence of coordinated hunting by groups of small theropods, with multiple individuals working together to flush mammals from their hiding places. Meanwhile, mammalian fossils reveal increasingly complex social structures, with evidence of cooperative burrow construction and shared parental care responsibilities. The seasonal dynamics of these interactions added another layer of complexity to the relationship. During warmer months, when dinosaur activity peaked, mammalian fossils show evidence of deep estivation, similar to modern hibernation, but triggered by temperature rather than food scarcity. These periods of dormancy allowed mammals to avoid the most dangerous times of year while conserving energy for reproduction and territory establishment. Winter presented different challenges and opportunities. As cold-blooded dinosaurs became less active, mammals experienced a temporary release from predation pressure. This allowed them to expand their foraging activities and explore new territories. Some mammals even evolved the ability to cache food during these safer periods, storing seeds and insects in hidden locations that could sustain them during the more dangerous warm seasons. The geographic distribution of mammalian fossils during this period tells a fascinating story of strategic retreat and tactical advancement. In regions with high dinosaur diversity, mammals remained small and specialized. But in areas where dinosaur populations were lower due to environmental factors, mammals began experimenting with larger body sizes and more diverse ecological roles. What's truly extraordinary is how these ancient survival strategies continue to influence mammalian behavior today. The enhanced parental care that developed during the Mesozoic era became a defining characteristic of mammalian reproduction. The sophisticated sensory systems that allowed early mammals to detect predators evolved into the remarkable hearing and smell capabilities we see in modern mammals. Even our own species carries genetic and behavioral legacies from this prehistoric struggle. Human night vision, while poor compared to other mammals, still reflects adaptations that helped our ancestors survive in a world of giant predators. Our enhanced spatial memory and pattern recognition abilities trace their origins to ancestors who needed to remember complex escape routes and predict predator behavior. The chemical signals that mammals developed for silent communication evolved into the complex pheromone systems that still influence mammalian behavior today. The social structures that provided safety in numbers became the foundation for the cooperative behaviors that define mammalian societies. As we move deeper into the Cretaceous period, this evolutionary warfare would reach unprecedented levels of intensity and sophistication, setting the stage for the final confrontation that would determine the ultimate fate of both dinosaurs and mammals. The Cretaceous period represents the climactic chapter in this 150 million year evolutionary war. By 100 million years ago, dinosaurs had reached the absolute pinnacle of their dominance. Massive predators like Carcharodontosaurus and Giganotosaurus stalked the continents, their jaws capable of crushing bones thicker than tree trunks. Meanwhile, armored giants like Ankylosaurus had evolved into living tanks, their backs bristling with spikes and clubs that could shatter the leg bones of any predator foolish enough to attack. Yet even in this world of titans, mammals were quietly staging one of the most remarkable comebacks in evolutionary history. The fossil record from this period reveals something that would have seemed impossible just 50 million years earlier. Mammals were beginning to win. Here's what changed everything. The breakup of Pangaea had created isolated continents with unique climates and ecosystems. On some of these landmasses, environmental conditions began favoring warm-blooded animals over their cold-blooded competitors. Seasonal temperature variations became more extreme, creating periods when dinosaur activity dropped significantly, while mammals remained fully functional. In these windows of opportunity, mammals exploded into ecological niches that had been closed to them for over 100 million years. Some lineages grew larger and more aggressive, developing hunting strategies that specifically targeted young dinosaurs. Others became highly specialized omnivores, capable of switching between plant and animal matter, depending on seasonal availability. The most successful mammalian predators of this era developed pack-hunting behaviors that were devastatingly effective against dinosaur nests. Fossil evidence suggests that some mammals specifically timed their reproductive cycles to coincide with dinosaur nesting seasons, allowing them to feed their own young on nutrient-rich dinosaur eggs and hatchlings. But perhaps the most significant development was the evolution of truly arboreal mammals. By mastering three-dimensional forest environments, these creatures accessed food sources and safe havens that were completely beyond the reach of even the most agile dinosaurs. From the safety of the canopy, mammals could observe dinosaur behavior patterns and plan their ground-based activities with unprecedented precision. The final act of this prehistoric drama came 66 million years ago with the asteroid impact that ended the Cretaceous period. But here's the crucial detail that most people miss. Mammals didn't simply inherit the Earth by default after the dinosaurs died. They had already evolved the survival toolkit necessary to thrive in a post-impact world. Their small size allowed them to survive on limited food resources during the nuclear winter that followed the impact. Their burrowing abilities protected them from the initial blast effects and subsequent environmental chaos. Their enhanced metabolisms allowed them to remain active in the cold, dark world that emerged from the ash and debris. Most importantly, their behavioral flexibility and intelligence enabled them to adapt to rapidly changing conditions in ways that larger, more specialized animals simply couldn't match. Within just a few million years of the asteroid impact, mammals had diversified into ecological roles that had been monopolized by dinosaurs for over 150 million years. The irony is profound. The very traits that had once made mammals seem like evolutionary underdogs became their greatest strengths in the post-dinosaur world. The enhanced parental care that had evolved to protect tiny, vulnerable young became the foundation for complex social behaviors. The sophisticated sensory systems developed for detecting predators became tools for finding new food sources and navigating unfamiliar environments. Today, when we watch a house cat stalking through tall grass or observe wolves coordinating a hunt, we're witnessing behaviors that trace their origins directly back to those desperate survival strategies developed during the age of dinosaurs. The enhanced night vision, the silent movement, the complex social coordination, all of these abilities were forged in the crucible of that ancient evolutionary war. Even our own species carries the genetic legacy of this prehistoric struggle. The fight-or-flight response that floods our bodies with adrenaline during moments of danger evolved from ancestors who faced predators that could end their lives in a single bite. The enhanced pattern recognition that allows humans to excel at complex problem-solving developed from the need to predict and avoid dinosaur hunting behaviors. The maternal instincts that drive human parents to extraordinary acts of protection and sacrifice trace their origins to mammalian mothers who had to defend their young against predators weighing thousands of times more than themselves. The social cooperation that defines human civilization grew from the collaborative survival strategies that allowed tiny mammals to thrive in a world of giants. This incredible story of survival against impossible odds offers profound lessons for understanding life on our planet today. It demonstrates that evolutionary success isn't always about being the biggest, strongest, or most dominant. Sometimes, the key to long-term survival lies in adaptability, intelligence, and the willingness to embrace seemingly disadvantageous traits that might prove crucial when conditions change. The relationship between dinosaurs and early mammals wasn't just a simple tale of predator and prey. It was an intricate evolutionary dance that shaped the fundamental characteristics of life as we know it. Every mammal alive today, from the smallest shrew to the largest whale, carries within its DNA the genetic memories of ancestors who survived the ultimate test of evolutionary fitness. As we face our own environmental challenges and rapid changes in the modern world, the story of early mammals offers both inspiration and practical wisdom. It reminds us that survival often depends not on dominating our environment, but on understanding it, adapting to it, and finding innovative ways to thrive within its constraints. The next time you see a mammal in the wild, Remember that you're looking at the descendant of creatures that survived one of the most challenging periods in the history of life on Earth. They didn't just endure the age of dinosaurs, they learned from it, adapted to it, and ultimately emerged stronger because of it. And in many ways, that remarkable legacy of resilience and adaptability continues to shape the natural world around us today.